Progress.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order on Thursday, September 19th. This is a hybrid meeting, and you can participate via Zoom and in person, and you can follow us on the web. Please stand for the flag salute. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, can I get a roll call of commissioners present, please?
Commissioner Ivor Scavdall,
Here.
Commissioner Noah Levy, Commissioner Thomas Mulder,
Here.
Commissioner Peggy O'Neill.
Here.
Commissioner Sarah West.
Here.
Commissioner Jerome Curiozzi.
Here.
Commissioner Lorna McFarland.
Here.
That gets us a quorum for sure. Director, do we have any agenda modifications?
Just one, Chair. We're going to ask that item number 16 on the consent calendar be pulled and continued to a date uncertain.
Okay, if I remember correctly, we need to pull that off and take care of that under items pulled from consent?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then I would go to public comment on non-agenda items. Are there any members?
I'm sorry, John, Director Ford, can you clarify item 16 by name? Because the notes I have say the Marcus Landco was requested.
Thank you for that. That was the MB2, item 16, and then we're also going to pull item 17, which is, I believe, the Macris Land Company, and that's to a date uncertain.
November 7th was the paperwork request we
Yeah,
were
there
given.
was, we had a supplemental staff report, but it looks like the agenda doesn't actually include that. So what we were doing was asking to have it continued to November 7th.
Okay. So I think, Chair, both of those get pulled, and then we'll continue one to a date uncertain, and then 17 to November 7th.
Okay, and then question, clarification, item 12 would be pulled off of consent as well?
I anticipate that will be pulled off consent, yes.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we have to get there. Thank you. So now we'll go to public comment on non-agenda items. If there's any members of the public present in person that would like to speak on non-agenda items, you're allowed 3 minutes. Please make your way to the podium. Seeing no one approaching the podium in person, I'm going to go to Zoom. Are there any members of Zoom that want to speak on non-agenda items? Please raise your hand. I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand on Zoom, so I will close public comment on non-agenda items, and we will move to consent agenda. So if anyone wants to pull anything off consent, if you're in person, raise your hand, and then on Zoom, raise your hand. Items 1 is review and approval of June 6, 2024 action summary. Anybody want to have that pulled off consent? Seeing none, seeing none, we'll leave that on consent. Item 2 is review and approval of June 27th, 2024 action summary. Is there anybody that would like to see that pulled? Seeing none, we will leave that on consent. Item 3, review and approval of July 18th, 2024 action summary. Anyone want to have that pulled? Seeing none, we will leave that on consent. Item 4, review and approval of August 1st, 2024 action summary. Does anyone want that pulled? Seeing none, I will leave that on consent. Item 5, review and approval of August 15th, 2024 action summary. Anybody would like to see that pulled? Seeing none, we'll leave that on consent. Item 6, McKinleyville Community Service District BMX Track and Park General Plan Conformance Review. Anybody would like to see? Okay, have that pulled. Okay. Item 7, pay lot line adjustment and conditional use permit extension. APNs, multiple APNs here. Anybody want to see that pulled? Seeing none, I will leave that on consent. Item 8, Parks Final Map Subdivision Extension. Anybody want that pulled? Seeing none, we will leave that on consent. Item 9, Collins Goldstein Partial Map Subdivision Extension. Anybody want to see in the McKinleyville area? Anybody want that pulled? Seeing none. And just for clarification, when I say seeing none, I'm also saying seeing none on Zoom. I'm not seeing any hands up for those of you following. So that item 9 will stay on consent. Item 10, Camino LLC in the Alton area. This is a modification of a CUP. Anybody want to see that pulled? Seeing none, I will leave that on consent. Item 11, Furtado Partial Map Subdivision and Special Permits in the McKinleyville area. Anybody want to see that pulled? Seeing none, we will leave that on consent. Item 12, Caltrans Boyd Draw Bike Path Coastal Development Permit and Conditional Use Permit in the Arcata area. Anybody want to see that pulled? Seeing hands in person and on the commission, we will pull that. Item 13, PJC Wellness LLC Conditional Use Permit in the Fortuna area. Anybody want to see that pulled? Seeing none, we will leave that on consent. Item 14, Humboldt Headless Chicken Ranch in the New Harris area. Anybody want to see that pulled? Seeing none, that'll stay on consent. Item 15, Goddess Organics LLC Conditional Use Permit and Special Permit in the Little Larrabee Creek, Bridgeville area. Anybody want to see that pulled? Seeing none, I will leave that on consent. Items 16 and 17 have been pulled. So I'm looking for a motion to approve everything minus and then we got, I think it's 12, 6, and 16 and 17.
I'll motion to approve the consent calendar with the exceptions of pulling items 6, 12, 16, and 17.
I'll second.
Okay. We got a first and a second. All those in favor will do a voice vote. Please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so now we will move on to, for those of you that haven't been present at a planning commission before, the items that have been pulled from consent will be heard in chronological order after public hearings, which we only have one public hearing. So North Coast Highway Solar is up. And those projects that were approved on consent are now approved.
Good evening, Commissioners. Steve Lazar, I'm the planner assigned to this project. I'll be presenting a brief PowerPoint, hopefully. So before you tonight is a use permit request for a solar project in the Alton area. It's a number of assessor parcel numbers associated with it, though they all constitute one legal parcel. Some details about the project. It would result in roughly 2.8 megawatts of production of solar. This would be a commercial solar project. It's proposed within an 11-acre fenced area, and it would be covering approximately 7 acres of the property. It would require a new encroachment off of Highway 36. It has a minimum of a 20-year lifespan expected, but could be longer than that. And it has a tentative agreement with the Redwood Coast Energy Authority to have power purchase should the project be constructed. This is showing the project location. You can see the project is located on the south side of Highway 36, a little bit east of the 101 interchange, east generally in the Alton area before the hill climbing up to Hydesville. You can see, looking a little closer at the property, that the proposed solar array is in yellow, and it's located on the kind of roughly south side of an existing railroad right-of-way that is part of the future Great Redwood Trail. To the north is a logging outfit, Steve Will's Logging. The property has been used for agriculture for over 100 years and continues to be used to this day. Looking a little closer at the site plan, you can see the arrangement of the solar array, solar panels. The access road, portions of the access road are already in place. The upper portions, roughly, basically where the first turnout can be seen coming off of Highway 36, that's a new section that would be constructed to serve the project. That would help provide some separation between the existing driveway that accesses a series of agricultural buildings and having a more exclusive route to the solar site for maintenance and construction. You can see after crossing the railroad right-of-way, there would be additional improvements to a new access road south of that right-of-way, and the right-of-way is kind of the area shown where the dash line is between that. And that right-of-way bisects the property. So here's that same area, kind of a detail showing the initial driveway. Here's a close-up of the turnout, the eastern portion of the proposed field, and the western portion. And this would be a fenced area. The property is planned and zoned for agricultural exclusive uses, though the northern portions of the property that are not subject to any of the solar array are actually planned as a result of the recent update, rural residential agriculture. The whole of the property includes the AP or Airport Land Use Plan overlay because of its proximity to the Fortuna Airport, which I'll get into in a little bit. And the property has limited subdivision potential because of its agricultural zoning. Agricultural exclusive doesn't allow subdivision. Looking at the agricultural exclusive section of our zoning regulations, you can see that solar facilities are an allowed use with a use permit, though there are findings that have to be made with regard to conditionally permitted uses on agricultural exclusive properties, which I'll get into now. So one of the policies that comes into play that was discussed in the staff report, and I'm going to go over a little bit tonight, is the no net loss policy. This has been something that's been confronted by prior solar projects that have been before your commission, and ways of addressing it. Essentially, the idea is that we want to protect parcels that are zoned for agricultural exclusive uses. We have other agricultural zoning districts, but parcels zoned or planned for agricultural exclusive are to be preserved for agricultural uses and not subject to conversion. And conversion can kind of come in the form of a change in the land use itself in terms of the land use designation, or occupancy by non-agricultural uses. So the struggle or the tension with a project of this sort is, how do we allow for the permitting of the field without compromising the underlying agricultural lands? And we'll get into kind of how we're doing that, making that balance. So mitigation measure AG2 requires a decommissioning and remediation plan. The purpose of this is to fully restore the site once the project has completed its useful life, so that it would be the same as it is today. And it would require some bonding, most likely, and that would ensure that if the property owner changes hands, or the permittee, should it receive a permit tonight, changes, that the county could still pursue completing the remediation work. So the money that would be put aside for bonding would be enough to cover that work. Mitigation measure AG1 gets into how we're balancing that dual use of the solar array with the existing pasture land. And the idea, generally speaking, is to take the pasture land and make it a higher level of management to increase agricultural potential through introducing uses that aren't currently there, like sheep grazing, honeybees, row crops, things that can coexist and also operate in concert with the proposed array. Because at the end, there would be spacing between the array, and there would be the ability to continue to manage for agriculture. And that's similar to approaches that have been taken by earlier projects before your commission. That's often referred to as an agrivoltaic approach. Earlier approvals occurred in 2021 and 2022, projects on Hatchery Road in the Blue Lake area and in Foster Avenue in the Arcata Bottoms. One of the things that I wanted to cover, Commissioner Scavdall asked about how this project, the amount of land that it would utilize, relates to the AE land that exists in the county, just to kind of give an idea of perspective in terms of the total amount of land planned and zoned for AE. So in green on this slide, you can see these are land use designations of AE that exist in the county, and it totals roughly 78,000 acres. The areas in kind of lavender is AE zoned lands. There's a much larger base of land that's AE zoning, and that's roughly 425,000 acres countywide. So when we start to compare that to what this parcel represents and what the earlier approvals affected, you can see that the initial approvals for the Hatchery Road project, the Foster Avenue project, would result in the use of approximately 38 acres for one project. The acres are on the left side. So the parcel, for instance, the first property that was approved had a 38-acre parcel, 26 acres of it was used. The second project had an 84-acre parcel, of which 30 acres was proposed to be used. And in this case, an 87-acre parcel would be utilizing roughly 11 acres, but actually just 7 acres would be subject to where the array is. The rest would just be the fenced area. So when you look at it, 67 acres out of 425,000, if you start doing the math, it's a very small number. It's fractions of a percent, less than 1%, less than 1/10 of 1%. And then if you look at the total of the projects, it doesn't change a whole lot. So hopefully that helps kind of put in perspective the amount of land that we're using of our agricultural land base relative to the project. One of the issues we did struggle with and had to work closely with our aviation department to address was the proximity of the project to the Fortuna Airport. And it is roughly a half mile south of the airport as it stands. The airport, as I was mentioning earlier, has an airport land use compatibility plan, and the parcel has an overlay that requires compliance with that plan. Each airport in the county has its own mapping where safety zones are established, and the purpose of the safety zones are to kind of establish areas of risk relative to proximity, and generally the closer you are to a runway, the more the risk is, and the more tightly their uses are controlled. This is showing kind of the mapping in this area. You can kind of see the array. It's a little transparent. There, I've outlined it for you. The majority of the project is located within the safety zone 2. There are some portions also in adjacent safety zones, and as I was mentioning, there are policies to discourage certain uses. So that's why we work closely with our aviation division. The biggest issue with a project of this sort is the potential to create glint or glare, in this case glare, and these types of impacts could result in blinding of aviation pilots that are using the airport. There are 2 types of glare. Generally speaking, when it comes to these types of projects, a green glare or a yellow glare. Green glare is a shorthand for a glare that has it creates a potential afterimage, but not for very long to where it would affect your ability to navigate. Yellow glare has a much longer lasting afterimage and could affect and create safety issues. So this project was analyzed for the potential to create glare, and the technical analysis determined that there would be no yellow glare introduced, but green glare would be a result of the project. And when you look at the study, it predicted the amount of hours of glare annually that would occur and what months that would be. But a total of roughly 433 hours. And they did it based on These are panels that could be adjusted to track with the sun and also to take different positions relative to the sun. So at the highest, at the angles that have the greatest potential for power production, that's kind of where they landed when doing the analysis. So the analysis was reviewed by our county aviation department. It was also reviewed by CAL FIRE, who used this airport quite a bit. And it was ultimately determined to be adequate to assure them that there wouldn't be potential impacts. And it took some back and forth to get to that point, but we feel confident tonight that the project as it stands would not create a new risk to users of the airport. Nevertheless, because the configuration of the project could change in the future, we put a mitigation measure to restrict the angle and orientation of the arrays in such a fashion that it would track with the analysis and not potentially, because there are configurations that would create yellow glare, and we wanted to make sure that was restricted and would have to be subject to further review should there be a change. I'm going to go through just a few of the mitigation measures that are, I think, useful to be aware of. There was cultural resources studies done for this project. There was consultation done with the local tribes, in this case Bear River primarily, and the Wiyot tribe. And in the case of this project, we have a condition requiring monitoring with the use of a tribal monitor during ground disturbance phase of the project. And lastly, I want to go over the railroad right-of-way because it is a little bit nuanced. This was a spur of, this was a railroad that originally predated the North-South Railroad that ran to Carlotta from the main line. And there are fee parcels that were created for conveyance of the land where the railroad sits. And it's not all the same in its entirety of its stretch, but in this case, the assessor parcel maps and the deed records show clearly that the parcel does not include the land where the right-of-way is located. That is land that's held now by the Great Railroad Trail Agency and previously the North Coast Rail Authority. So in the case of this project site, crossing that area is a fundamental component of it, and we wanted to make sure to work closely with the rail folks, in this case the trail folks, to ensure that there was going to be permission to allow that continued use and enhanced use under the proposal. We feel comfortable that they are prepared to work with the applicant and the property owner in allowing the continued use of a crossing and enhancement and development of it to serve the project. Nevertheless, we do have conditions of approval that address that. And here I've highlighted the kind of right-of-way so you can kind of see. And this is showing sort of the condition of that right-of-way today from a site visit I performed. The overgrown area with the vegetation is where the railroad grade is located. And then here's the existing crossing. There's some debate about whether the crossing is a permitted one, but as I mentioned earlier, this is a parcel that's had used agriculturally for 100+ years and sits on both sides of the right-of-way. And we feel comfortable based on the engagement with the trail folks that they're gonna allow the crossing to be utilized and improved. So there was a supplemental provided to the commission yesterday that had some tweaks to conditions A6 and A7 reflecting the crossing itself or the condition concerning consultation and approval by the Great Railroad Trail Agency. We did this at the request of the landowner, and we feel like it gets a little more refined, but it still meets the spirit of what we were trying to do, which is ensure that there was permission granted by the trail agency before the project was allowed to proceed. And then A7 is about the remediation and remediation of the site when its useful life is over. And we added some language in there to reflect that with a potentially 35-year lifespan, the bonding might need to be adjusted periodically given rates of inflation so that we don't end up with not enough money to complete the work. So that's what that small tweak is. So with that said, you should have received a copy of the draft initial study and mitigated negative declaration that was prepared and circulated. The comment period ended at the end of last month. We haven't received any comments on the document. There's seven different mitigation measures. I went through some of the more key ones. We recommend that you approve the project. We believe that the findings can be made, both in terms of potential environmental effects and the findings for approval of the use permit. And with that said, I'm going to end my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Are there any clarifying questions from the commission to staff? Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair. Thank you for that presentation. I think I struggled a little bit, and I think I'm still struggling a bit about why a conditional use permit is pursued. I was just trying to understand that, given the way that ag exclusive is defined in the county code. I guess, can you walk through, are we getting a conditional use permit because of the airport piece of this? Because of the way I read AE, that this project would just require a use permit. So I guess, what am I missing?
So the slide I brought up earlier, if we can share screen, I can just revisit that. Okay. While we get that up, in each zoning district, we have principally permitted uses and conditionally permitted uses. The principally permitted uses in agricultural exclusive are agricultural uses, residential uses. Once you start to get outside of that orbit, you either are within the range of uses that are conditionally permitted, or you're in a use that's not allowed. And in our case, is it able to come up? Here we go. So what I've highlighted on the slide is there are other conditionally permitted uses, but you see the line that says uses permitted with a use permit. Everything below that line, which includes this project, which would be a utility or energy facility, including electric generation. That's what essentially is triggering it. Director, I think
Yeah,
wants to-
I would just clarify that there is no distinction between a conditional use permit and a use permit. They are the same.
So two quick questions. I understand the decommissioning and the bond that you have set up. So does that mean that the applicant has no possibility for extension or like replacement and, to restart the lifespan? Is that how it's written?
Actually, no, it's quite flexible. What we're saying to you tonight is they expect a minimum for a 20-year lifespan and potentially a maximum for a 35-year, but the permit doesn't include a time limit. So the permit could allow this to remain in perpetuity, conceivably. So it really will just be dependent on the useful life and when the applicant or the future manager decides it's time to decommission it.
And so if they were to swap out panels to upgrade them at, say, year 24, would that require them coming back to the commission, or they can do that as long as the footprint remains the same?
I think you got it. Provided it operates within the boundaries of what is being before us tonight, that should be fine.
Okay, and then last question as a follow-up. You had asked about, and you gave a helpful chart about 67 of 209 acres is being allowed to have this type of facility, which is relatively low at the moment. Is there a threshold at which the county would say, whatever number of acres is too many, and then would those folks have grounds to, be treated equally, or how does that work?
Well, actually, it's a little, I provided that to give some perspective of how much land is in play, but really what we're saying to the commission tonight is we don't believe this constitutes a conversion of ag land. This is a dual use that can coexist. So the threshold is actually 0. In terms of our policy, as soon as you convert ag land, you have to begin mitigating for it in a variety of different fashions, and that's not the approach that's being taken with this project.
Thank you.
Commissioner West?
The comment letter from the Farm Bureau is dated from 2020. Have you had more recent conversations with them with the new mitigation measures that you developed?
I reached out to them because there has been change in staffing with the executive director, and the current executive director, I provided the mitigation measure language, and essentially they said, well, we're looking at it. We'll let you know if we have any further comments. But I think essentially what you can see is that their position hasn't really changed. But I think if you look at their letter, what they say is if it gets approved, we want to see these things. And I think we have integrated those things. So we gave them probably a year and a half to provide comments. And I took that as that there was no change in their position, which is they don't support the proposal.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Any other questions from the commission? So at this point in time, I would turn it over to the applicant, which you have up to 15 minutes for a presentation if you choose. And also, after public comment, you are provided like a 3-minute rebuttal if there's anything that needs to be clarified.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Would start by thanking staff for the continued support. We've been working on this project since 2021. Kind of with COVID, that came into play, and some of the times throughout the past few years, it's definitely been a process, and we're appreciative for the cooperation from staff throughout those years. Steve did a phenomenal job in his presentation. I think just some of the high-level items, in addition to myself here, the developer is also present, as well as some supporting staff virtually. If I can address anything that you have, may turn it over to someone else. I think overall, I just want to touch on a few things. One is just, a very comprehensive glare analysis was completed, went through multiple reviews with the airport staff and fire department, and we ultimately received concurrence with them. Conditions of approval were added to supports kind of the implementation and the angles in which the solar will be installed. The other one is kind of with the Farm Bureau. On that side, ultimately we are going to post a bond. Decommissioning will be in place, and we'll ensure that that's implemented in the event anything were to occur throughout the duration of this facility. And then the last one is just want to mention that EDP is the developer here, and they're in a 100% exclusive agreement with the Redwood Coast Energy Authority. This project's part of their tariff program, and ultimately the goal is to encourage renewable energy sources. So there'll be a direct effect of these solar production into the grid and back into the regional community. And that's all I have at this time. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to address those for you.
Commissioner O'Neill?
Could you just explain to me where it says battery and power conversion devices would be co-located within the solar panels? Is the batteries just to turn the devices, or is it going to store power and release it at different times?
Yeah, I may turn that over to Mika. For the point being is the battery will be a collection of the energy in which it would be stored in there and then released into the power grid at certain times.
So how big a battery are we talking about?
Nika might be able to address that for you.
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Nika Goldstein. I'm from the Solar Project Developing Company. We also have someone online from our construction EPC that could better address, but we're not doing a battery storage facility here. We're not storing power, it's gonna go directly onto the grid.
Is there a way, if the grid can't accept the power, that you can shut it off?
Richard, are you online?
There's a Richard Engel.
Yeah.
He's got his hands up. Can we unmute him, please, Steph? Looks like he's unmuted. Go ahead and speak, Richard, please. Uh-oh.
Good evening. This is Richard Engel. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. This is Richard Engel from Redwood Coast Energy Authority. We contracted for this project under our feed-in tariff, and until now, the feed-in tariff has not planned for energy storage being part of the project. So we did not contract for energy storage in this project. Just with changes that have been happening on the grid and power markets and grid reliability concerns in California, it's become increasingly important to include energy storage as part of new solar development. And recognizing that, we just last month went to our own board of directors with a proposal to change our feed-in tariff program so that future contracts will require that projects of more than 1 megawatt in size, and they can be up to 5 megawatts per the program, would require battery energy storage to be included in the project. So you might see future projects coming to you that are contracted under our feed-in tariff that will include energy storage, but we don't have provision for that in this project, which originally came under contract with us a few years ago.
So is that sentence not applicable, or is it just mean that the batteries are not for storage, they're more for on-site power?
I think as Nika said, there just won't be any battery included in this project.
So that just needs to be struck from the description? That's on page 3 of 9.
Steve, is that coming from the staff report?
I
And it's
don't know.
possible,
It's
you
the
know,
one I was
since
given.
2021, that there was maybe a version of that.
Through the chair, I believe that it's likely the project description that this is generating that, and we rely on the applicant's information for that. So it could be that there's some archaic references in some of the materials.
So
referencing.
inadvertently, there was a project description with some, that used the term battery in there, and
Yeah,
there's been testimony provided that batteries will not be used as part of the project.
that is correct.
Okay, I'm good with that. Are there any other questions from the commission? Okay, thank you. If there's anything that comes up, we'll call you up, and then also you do have the opportunity, if there's any public comment, you can rebut or clarify or anything like that, we'll call you back up. You have that opportunity, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
And then just for clarification, I did technically open public comment when the applicants started speaking. So we'll start off in person. Is there anybody that wants to speak on this project in person in the room? Please make your way to the podium. Seeing no one move towards the podium, we will go to Zoom. Or there's anyone on Zoom that wants to speak on this project? Seeing no hands, I'll bring it back. Is there any clarifications that the applicant wants to address before we turn it over to the commission?
The only clarification I would say would be, just want to make sure we have concurrence from the commission this evening for the suggested revisions to the two conditions, A6 and A7.
That's how staff, I saw it, staff presented as recommended conditions of approval.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. I will now close public comment and bring it to the commission. Anyone want to make a comment? Commissioner Scavdall?
Yeah, just a couple of comments, and thank you for the staff report and applicant. So it's my understanding, and I just want to clarify, this is not preventing the continuous agricultural use of this property. In fact, it's been demonstrated that those uses are going to continue. I actually think that diversity of income could be beneficial and help preserve ag lands, so I think these types of projects are add value in that sense. And then also, I think we're going to see our own climate action plan coming here soon, and again, these types of projects could help mitigate some of the impacts that agriculture has on the climate here in Humboldt County. So I'm supportive of the project.
Thank you for that. Commissioner West? Commissioner Curriasi?
Yeah, thank you. Overall, I'm very excited about this project and to see the hard work that Redwood Coast Energy Authority has been putting in to try to encourage these types of projects. So I really appreciate the applicant pursuing this. And I was particularly excited to see the proposal by, through the mitigation measure proposal to do what is being termed as agrivoltaic. So basically looking at ways to combine both agricultural uses with renewable energy power. So this is particularly exciting. It's actually relatively new. So it's very cool that that's happening here in the county. In fact, the State Energy Commission currently has funding out to research this exact type of project. So I really applaud staff and the applicant for pursuing this. So I guess with that said, I have a really quick question on finding 9, which lists 3 different zones that aren't mentioned anywhere else. It lists also AG and MH zones, and I'm just wondering if that's just an error. And if so, to remove that from finding 9. In the resolution, yes.
Through the chair, it's AE and a portion of it is RA, and that would be the more correct summary for finding 9. So if we were to, I think revision should be AE and RA zones and eliminate AG and MH.
Okay. You good with that? Is there any other questions from the commission, clarifications? Sounds like, all
I'm
in
sorry,
favor?
I misspoke. That was a land use designation, so Commissioner Curriasi is correct. It should just be AE zones. There are no other zonings applicable.
Okay. Commissioner West, you want ready to make a motion? Is that what I'm?
Just a quick comment. I just wanted to thank staff for such thorough conditions of approval and listening to all of the comments that came in. I initially had some hesitations, but like after reading through everything and looking at the thoughtful different mitigation measures that are in place, I feel comfortable supporting this project. So I'm happy to move forward.
Everybody jump at, everyone jump.
Sure. I also think staff did a great job, and same with the applicants, so I will go ahead and make a motion to adopt the North Coast Highway Solar Project as proposed with the suggested revisions staff previously presented and the recent land designation update.
I'll second. Also, just noting that we're also accepting staff's recommended changes to the supplement, the language around the Great Redwood Trail Agency.
The conditions of approval number 6 and 7.
Thank you.
Yes. Yep. Sounds like this, I'll do a voice vote on this. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone oppose? Any abstentions? None. Motion carries. So that project is approved now. So now we will go back to items pulled from consent. And I think it's number 6 is the first one. Commissioner Curriasi, is that would you prefer a full staff report? Is there a clarifying question or?
I don't need a staff report, but I do have a number of comments that I would like to discuss.
Okay. So if you don't need a staff report, usually what we've done in the past is you just go ahead and state your comments and we'd go from there.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, overall, this is an exciting project, and I'm honestly a little bit frustrated to pull it from consent, but I felt like I needed to around what appeared to be. I'm a little confused why the McKinleyville Community Plan wasn't explicitly cited, as far as I could tell, in the resolution or in the staff report. And that's particularly around language in the community plan with planned bike paths, as well as there's language in the community plan around sort of interconnecting green space with public parks. And so that was one sort of general question I had. It was what appeared to be sort of the absence of taking into account the McKinleyville Community Plan in this project. And I guess to clarify a bit more, the bike paths, the community plan does show a Class 1 bike path that would connect the town center, and I believe is planned to connect to the town center and extend south, and there's already land set aside for that. But, and the community plan shows that path going right alongside the east edge of this parcel. And yet the design doesn't seem to take into account this or to provide any sort of connectivity or recognize that this path is supposed to be there. So I was hoping to get some thoughts from staff on that.
So this is what's called a general plan conformance review. And so under the government code, what we're looking at is the proposed use consistent with what the general plan calls for. So really, the extent of our review was, is this use something that the general plan says is appropriate for the site? And the site is designated under the McKinleyville Community Plan, like you mentioned, for public facility. That seems appropriate for what they're proposing. That was pretty much the extent of the review here.
But I guess, thank you for that. I guess, well, so as I read the county general plan, it explicitly says that the McKinleyville Community Plan acts as the general plan for that area and works in tandem with that. And that community plan, acting as the general plan for that area, explicitly has a map of planned trails, figure 12B, and it shows that right of way going right alongside this property.
Understand. So in the staff report, there should be attachment 5, which we included the government code section that talks about what this application is, what the findings that, basically what the special district here is required to submit to the advisory body. And so that's what we were looking at, is relative to that. It's not it's not a discretionary permit for us to look at. We're not analyzing everything within the community plan. It's really, is that use something that's appropriate under the general plan for that site?
If I could, not to at all conflict with what Mr. Johnson just said, is that the design of the site plan does show that there is a pedestrian bicycle path going around the parking area and extending out to Washington, which is where the bike trail is. It also shows bike and pedestrian connections onto the adjoining streets to the west. We can certainly add a finding that does comply with the circulation policies of the McKinleyville Community Plan and cite those improvements as evidence to that effect.
Thank you. I certainly would like some addressing of the community plan in the findings. So I guess what you're proposing is that what appears to me is to be pedestrian access is proposed to be combined pedestrian and bicycle access.
It's 10 feet wide. That would normally be a joint pedestrian bicycle path.
And the entryway off of Washington Street does not look like it doesn't look like it sort of addresses that connectivity in any way. So the idea is that the bicycle path that goes on Washington would use the car pathway to get onto that.
Well, I don't know that I would go there because it does connect directly out. It is right directly. It connects with the sidewalk north of the planter area.
Yep, I see that. I'm looking at Commissioner Scavdall's screen here. Yep, it looks like, so that would be a Class 2 trail on Washington then. Okay.
Washington at that point is a Class 2 or 3. It is striped, so it'd be a Class 2 trail, correct?
Mm-hmm. Okay. That makes sense to me. I think if you could address how that meets this particular planned bike path, the connectivity to that, I think I would appreciate that if this commission is okay with that.
So I can't pull it up on my tablet's not pulling up this. My only thing I would do before I dove too far in the woods, I would open public comment and let the applicant speak. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to open up public comment and start with the applicant. Looks like we got Pat Kaspari. Hopefully I enunciated that correctly. Please. And you're not held to 3 minutes, but please, I don't think you'll need 15 to explain it.
No, I won't. Yeah, so currently the Midtown Trail ends at Washington. When the Washington Estates subdivision was just recently completed, the county required them to build the bike path along Washington. However, there's an existing house on the corner of Washington and School that encroaches on the right-of-way, so the bike path could not continue along Washington to connect to School. So working with the county, we provided that connection, that 10-foot wide trail that connects to the bike path along Washington and bypasses that house and takes it out to School. So it does accommodate bikes, it does accommodate pedestrians, and was the, I think, most elegant way to continue that bike path and continue the Midtown Trail.
That makes sense. So that plan is for a mixed pedestrian and bike connection to School Road then? Okay.
Correct.
Great. I appreciate that. Thank you. I do have one other.
Well, we're in public comment now, so anybody else, any other commissioners have questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. We'll call you back if we have any. So now that I've opened up public comment, anyone else on Zoom want to speak on this topic? Seeing no hands, anyone in the room want to speak on this topic? Seeing no one come to the podium, close public comment, go back to the commission. No.
Thank you. I have one other question, and yeah, overall, I'm very supportive of this project. I do question the quantity of parking, where upwards of 25 to 30% of this public land is being devoted to parking stalls. So I would like to hear some thoughts about how that quantity of parking was arrived at for this project, perhaps to Mr. Gaspari or staff.
I would think that would bring the applicant back. I mean, I don't think it's staff's interpretation of why someone designed the project away. So, can we get him back?
He should.
So,
Yeah.
if you don't mind me chiming back in.
Yes, please.
We worked with the architect on coming up with the number of parking stalls for the parking lot. We, of course, are hoping that a lot of the folks that are going to be using this are going to be riding their bikes to the park. But we've also, the local BMX group has begun conversations with the old Kmart that was here, that is now a U-Haul rental, that has a huge parking lot that is just across the street. So when there are events, they figure they'll probably have like 6 formal races, and they have negotiated with them to allow the use of that parking lot for those larger events. And then working with the architect for the regular day-to-day use of the park, they came up with the parking stalls that are shown.
So just to clarify, what I heard you say is in direct working with the architect, you came to the appropriate amount of parking spaces, and also working with the group of individuals behind the BMX movement, so that way there will be appropriate parking to utilize the park for what the intention is. Did I hear that correctly?
That is correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Curiosi, do you have a question for him?
No, I appreciate that explanation. I think that I just would like to comment that that sounds like a sort of a standard vague approach. It's not a particular criticism to the Community Services District or the architect, but to see a public park land, a quarter to 30% of it devoted to asphalt, as opposed to other public uses, is for me frustrating. I'm not going to hold this up if this is if this is not a close to unanimous vote. But I just do want to voice that I think we could use our public spaces a lot more effective, particularly given the amount of residential density around this place and the potential for other recreational uses. And I think also I was a bit disappointed to see the change from moving that parking lot from a long school road, which is an arterial, a designated arterial with a fair amount of traffic, and putting the parking and asphalt into higher value sections of that land, which are set back from that busy arterial, and then putting children play structures and basketball courts within 40 feet of an arterial. I guess just voicing my opinion to, I would like to see better in general. But with that said, I recognize grant funds are in hand. I recognize a lot of work has been done by the Community Services District. I know this is wanted by the community, and I'm excited to see this project. I just wanted to voice those opinions and concerns about this.
Can I ask a question?
Commissioner O'Neill, go ahead.
What is the estimated cost to construct this facility?
Are you wanting that? Go ahead.
Through the chair. $2.8 million.
Thank you.
I would just say I certainly agree with your comments about the placement of the parking in future projects. I'd prefer to see the parking along that arterial road and also, moving play structures and basketball courts away. I completely agree with your comment there. For the parking, it does on the surface seem a little excessive, but having been through Hiller Park many times and that being quite full, even when there's not a sport event happening, I would support the project with the parking as is, but I certainly give weight to your comment about the placement.
I'm not seeing other hands up, so I'm just gonna weigh in. When I read over this project, what I see is a great opportunity for local youth to be able to do something, not have to travel far away. I don't know what we have for BMX racing anymore. We used to have a lot of it. There's Samoa, used to be Redwood Acres, but it's not as prevalent as it used to be. I know BMX racing, motorcycle racing, any other of those type of activities bring in economic revenue from people outside the county. So I think it's great to be able to, I looked at that and like, okay, there's parking, so people can come there, travel from out of the county, park, and have their bikes right there, have their tools to work on their bikes. And I thought it was a great economic and community asset. I hear your concerns, although as someone that's traveled to different racing events, I think that's the focus behind the way I read this project, so I would support the parking as is. I feel that really the appropriate time to talk about parking and all that kind of stuff is when we get into this climate action plan sometime in the spring, rather than kind of piecemealed. Can't think of the appropriate piecemealed changing policy. I think there's an appropriate time to change policy, and that would be the time to do that. That's my personal opinion. Commissioner Scavdall.
I think we're being asked for a general plan conformance review, not for a design review. So I think McKinleyville Community Service District can do that and did a pretty good job of it. So I think staff's recommendation and the fact that this complies with the general plan, that's our job here tonight. I do think it's cool they put in pickleball so that when grandparents take their kids to ride their bikes on the BMX track, we have something to do. So,
thank you for the reminder that it's a conformance review. Any other comments? Commissioner West?
If nobody else has comments or discussion, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, please do.
I move that we approve the project and adopt the resolution as proposed.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, we'll go to voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Probably would be appropriate to take a brief, what would you say, 5-10 minutes, 5-minute recess, and because we got probably 10-15 minutes of public comment and discussion after that. Commissioner?
I'll be recusing myself from the next item, so when you come back from break, you don't need me.
Correct, okay. And then when we're done with that item, someone will come out to the hall and bring you back in. So 5-minute break, 7:05, we'll be back in. Uh, 7:06, we're back in. So now we're on item 12. Let me make sure I properly read in the Caltrans Boyd Draw Bike Path Coastal Development Permit and Conditional Use Permit. Looks like staff's queued up to do a staff report. And then, is the applicant on hand to make I don't see any Caltrans in, oh. There is Caltrans. Okay, so perfect. Staff, it's turning over to you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Cliff Johnson, and I'm going to be presenting this project, which is a coastal development permit and a conditional use permit for what we're calling the Caltrans Boyd Draw Bike Path. There it is. So it's in the Arcata area. Just a quick summary. This is for construction of approximately 8-foot wide bike path under US Highway 101 to connect Wymore Road and Hinden Road. It's going to include the right-of-way acquisition of approximately 0.28 acres of land that's zoned agricultural exclusive. And there's going to be a new gravel access road on that property that's being acquired. This requires not only a coastal development permit, but a conditional use permit because it is a use that's not directly related to the agricultural use of the property. And so as part of the finding for the conditional use permit, there should be a determination of whether this would impair the continued agricultural use of the property or the adjacent lands or the agricultural operations on the site, and we do not believe that it would. This slide shows the project location in between Giuntoli and North Bank Road on Highway 101. This is showing you the schematic that shows where the project is going to take place. So it's going under the bridge, the little drawbridge there, and then the right-of-way acquisition is shown there on basically the northwest portion of this slide. It's the western side of Highway 101. And so as part of the conditional use permit, we do believe that that's not going to impact the agricultural use of the property. I have a couple other slides that will show that a little better. Right here, this really, if you can see the little red outline, that's showing the area to be acquired. And so this is currently not in agricultural use. It's really off to the side. We did not believe that it will impair the use of the property for agriculture. Right here, this is just a street view look of the area that's proposed to have the bike path. And what it will allow is for connection to the existing bike network. This is the access to get basically onto the edge of US Highway 101 for the bike trail that goes over the bridge into McKinleyville. And this just showing you right here, the approach coming up from that on Wymore Road onto the bridge heading north to McKinleyville. So currently the access for people on bicycles and pedestrian coming from McKinleyville to Arcata is required to go over that bridge down onto Wymore, and they come out on Giuntoli, and then the bikes are required to navigate 2 roundabouts. This is one here looking towards the west, and then the other one looking east here off of Janes Road. And so the idea here is to increase safety for bicycles and pedestrians so that they do not need to navigate these roundabouts. Here, unfortunately, I think I picked a bad color, but if you can see the blue, that's showing the new location, the access that will be enabled from the development of this bike path. We have received public comment that have raised a number of issues, safety, the ongoing illegal activity that's essentially related to homeless encampments in the area. There's been some questions of who would be maintaining and policing the area. There's some requests, I believe, for signage to direct people to Mad River Beach, because there has been apparently a history of some vehicles getting taking the wrong routes on their way to Mad River Beach, and some have questioned the need for such a project. We did just talk about why there seems to be a need for this, which is to increase safety so that people who are traveling from McKinleyville to Arcata do not need to navigate those roundabouts. The safety concerns related to bicyclists coming up Hyndon Road instead of where they currently go. Just wanted to kind of show you a couple street views. This is Hyndon Road, so we believe it's a very low volume traffic road where vehicles and bicycles can coexist rather safely. And again, on Wymore Road, that's generally the case. So that's just a brief presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions I have.
Mr. Scavdall?
I didn't get or understand the total length of the undercrossing, and will it be lit under there, or is,
There are there's no information in the plans that they've submitted showing that it would be lit. So we have no reason to believe that would be the case.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Will it be, who will maintain it so that it doesn't look like that one you showed us where it's all overgrown and kind of scary looking?
Sure, the maintenance requirement will be Caltrans.
Okay. I think if it's well maintained, that goes, to some of the concerns the community might have.
Any other commissioners? Just a clarifying question. I know some projects we've conditioned of certain road maintenance and those kind of requirements. Is there this is a really unique thing. So does the commission have the authority to add a condition possibly of an additional requirement as far as maintenance or upkeep, like like we've done reports where someone has to send in an annual report of how maintenance is done, or road maintenance associations in more partials? Is that something that's outside our purview, or is that inside our purview?
That's certainly within your purview. So this is a coastal development permit and a conditional use permit, and so just like most of the discretionary permits that come in front of the Planning Commission, as long as you believe that those conditions are necessary to make those findings, that they can be added.
Okay, thank you for that.
I think that that's a good point, because then that elevates it to the understanding that it is important to maintain it and it just doesn't fall off the map and everyone forgets and it becomes overgrown and people are spray painting it and whatever else they do.
So are there any other clarifying questions? Okay, so at this point in time now, I'll open up public comment and turn it over to the applicant, which is Caltrans. You have up to 15 minutes to present. If you don't have to use all 15 minutes though.
Hello everyone, my name is Sean Bryant. I work for Caltrans. I'm a design engineer on this project. I probably won't use all 15 minutes, and I would also like to mention there's a few other Caltrans folks here, so if they want to chime in, I'm going to turn the floor over to them afterwards if they'd like to say something. I would just like to double down on the need for this project. We have evidence that people are crossing Highway 101 currently. There's a lot of holes in the right-of-way fence, and we have collision data showing that in recent years someone has been hit and killed at this location. This presents a serious risk for users of the road and the people that are crossing the road themselves. And we feel that this bike path will be a safe crossing route for people that would cross the road there, and it would increase safety for not only those people, but of course users of the road itself. And I would also like to say that the project serves to connect Hyndon and One More Road, meaning that people coming down from McKinleyville on the east side of the Mad River Bridge on that bike path, instead of going all the way down to Giantoli and navigating the traffic there and the two roundabouts there, they can immediately cross over to the Arcata Bottoms, which is a safer route for those cyclists. And I would also like to say that we have installed projects like this in the past. An example would be the Mad River or Eureka Slough Bridge. And prior to the installation of the path there, there was homeless activity and illegal activity happening there. And after the path was installed and the public footprint there increased, we actually saw a great decrease in homeless activity and illegal activity. And that's all I would like to say, and I'll turn the floor over to my fellow Caltrans employees.
Hi, thank you. I'm Karen Coonrod. I work for Caltrans as well. And I just wanted to touch on the maintenance issue, that Caltrans is responsible for the maintenance of all our facilities and keeping the highways clean, and they are clean. And when we get any complaints, you know, maintenance is on that. They pick up the garbage, they repair the fences. It is a constant issue that we're dealing with all of our highways and roadways, but we will continue to maintain. And if we get any complaints, there's a way that the public can submit complaints. So I would just say how we could address it is one way. Thank you.
Can I ask you a clarifying question, being as you brought up maintenance? What is your plan as this seems to be going under the highway as far as your maintenance vehicles? Do you have a specific special maintenance vehicle you plan to utilize this smaller pathway?
So we are in building paths is pretty new for Caltrans. I will say our previous director was a huge proponent of complete streets and connecting communities. And I'll just, because of this project, I'll just say freeways divide communities. And Arcata is a perfect example where it goes right down the middle and half of it's on, you know, the east side and the west side. And so we're looking for opportunities to connect communities. And our maintenance is a little behind. We're building projects faster than maintenance. And so right now we're sweeping, but we are trying to get equipment. There's, you know, they're building paths in the city of Eureka. And that is just something we are actively working on to get more equipment for maintenance. But right now it's basically on the ground, folks, is what I would say.
So just to clarify, if I heard you correctly, currently you do not have maintenance vehicles dedicated for bike paths. Is that correct or incorrect?
I don't think we do. You guys, yeah, and I should know because I am a maintenance engineer, but I do not think we have a sweeper. Go ahead for this. Oh, I'm getting a buzz. My team.
Just to clarify though, just because you don't have dedicated staff doesn't mean that you aren't responding to and maintaining trails.
We are
with your staff,
maintaining.
right?
I just don't know if we have like a sweeper for a trail is all I'm saying, but we do definitely will maintain and keep it safe. Hopefully that's clear.
Commissioner Scavdall.
What is this crossing now? I mean, we saw a picture of it. Is this a ag crossing or a drainage ditch, or what is this facility that's there?
Yeah, so it is a bridge for like over high floodings, you know, and so it's usually dry. It, just to let you know, it could be underwater very rarely. And right now, where the path will go, it is dry. We're building an embankment. It will be paved. And as you saw in the photos, it is overgrown because we're not maintaining it as a path for public use, even though you can walk through it. We've walked through it. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. It's fairly long, so, right, it doesn't open up at the center median or anything?
No, the bridge, yeah, it's all the way across. So it's just, it's a bridge that spans both
all four lanes?
Yeah, all the lanes and the median.
And the median?
Yeah.
So I do have some concern about safety in there, particularly at night, evenings. And it's also looks like it's on a tangent. I don't even know if you can see from one end to the other when you enter. Can you actually see all the way across?
Yeah, you can see all the way through the okay. I want to call it a culvert, but it is a bridge.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any plans for lighting?
We currently do not have plans for lighting, but we have investigated it, and environmental has cleared us to install lighting.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other? Do you have any other team members that would like to present? No? Okay. So just to remind you, at the end of all public comment, you will have the opportunity to come back up at the applicant and clarify anything. So just you do have that opportunity. Okay, so now applicant has done their presentation, so now it'll be public comment. Open up in the room. Anybody wants to speak on this item, please come to the podium. You're allowed 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is John Hornsby, and I'm trustee of the Hornsby Family Trust. We live directly north of the proposed Boyd Draw Bike Path project. Over the past few years owning this property, we've noticed an increase in the unhoused, the transients, and law violators. Caltrans attachment 1B project description proposed need, the last sentence, the project would provide complete street enhancement by connecting Wymore to Hendon Road and would connect Arcata Bottoms to the existing path, the existing multi-use path across the north span of the US 101. They do not address the fact that the current multi-use path that you saw the picture of is in dire need of repair. There's 3-4 holes in the fence currently. There's encampments there. There's people living there. We've called Caltrans 8 times in the last 8 months because of these problems. The fence that runs up to the 101 does not connect. So when you get up to the head of that path, you can walk directly onto the 101 freeway. A bike can go on there. There's no signage there that is in place to tell people, you know, turn left here, go down. Don't go straight onto the freeway. So the safety, you know, I heard that brought up. There's a lot of safety issues. The fencing on the east side that allows people to, on that same path, to go on the east side onto private property and harm those properties. The fencing on the west side from Waymore Road, where you saw the picture of it, that has numerous holes where people go through, make encampments, and it also allows for animals to go through there. If there's any cattle that are loose or deer, they will go through there and on to the 101. So the maintenance that was brought up by one of you is very important, that they're not taking care of what's there now, what's going to make it happen in the future. Firsthand, underneath the Mad River Bridge, they can go down from that path. There's no fence. You can go down under the Mad River Bridge. We've called on this numerous times where they start fires under the bridge. I've sent pictures into the council
20 seconds.
about these fires under the bridge that have scorched the underneath. And in closing, I have a few more things to say, but 2E, they say that the visual enhancement, it's not anticipated to be negative,
Thank you for your comments.
but it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please approach the podium. If there's anyone else, please stand up in line so that way.
Hello, Council. My name is Michael Fraga. I live at the end of Wymore Road. I've been there for 55 years. When about 11 years ago, the new bridge was put in across Mad River, the bike path was planned. We were told that Wymore Road would have a special place for people to walk and ride the bike. That never happened. That's about 4,000 feet of road. Then, about 6 months after the bridge was almost completed, 6 months into it, Municipal Water District wanted a water line to come through Wymore Road. So they told us the water line would come first, then the road, the boulevard, semi-boulevard would be fixed for the bike path. Then when the bike path came through, they showed on the map that the bike path would come right onto Weimar Road. We requested that it would go parallel to Weimar Road because bikes are going to get hit. My wife hit a biker. Then Caltrans put stop signs and said, well, if your wife kills someone, it won't be her fault. Those stop signs are there. The bikers don't watch the stop signs. They race right on. So while we're driving, 25 miles an hour, there's brush there. You can't see them. You're going to hit the biker. Now, to respect to the Caltrans workers, they do help clean up when we call. The fences are bad. And this area that you asked if it needs to be lit and that if you can walk through, you can't. Because about 2 years ago, Caltrans spent at least $100,000 to fill both bridges with concrete and rocks. And there's a rock touching all the way through so the homeless people wouldn't sleep in there. So why did we spend that money just the other day when we already knew that the safety of the bike path from Hinden with the turnabouts, where we spent a fortune on those turnabouts, that the bikers have a hard time coming over Gentoli Lane overpass? We should have thought of that already, and now we're going to spend more money. And then north of the highway, up Central, so you're on the bike path across the river, you have no place to go. You're still danger to go up Central Avenue because there's no bike path there. You either go to Azalea or back on the highway. They've never even completed that part of the bike path. And now we're adding more bike path. With more bike paths, going to add more people, more danger. It needs to be lit if they do that. And I think maintenance is very important. Fencing needs to be repaired, needs to be fixed. My insurance went up because the highway fence is gone. So if the cattle get on the Weimar Road, they go right on the highway. 2 years ago, I had cattle on the highway. They went right up the bike path. From homeless people opening gates. All my life, we never had to lock our gates. Now I've got to lock pasture gates because of homeless problems. So I just think the county needs to look at these other developments that are happening and maintain what we have before we add more. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in person that would like to speak on this topic? Seeing no one, I'll go to Zoom. If you will, please raise your hand on Zoom if you want to speak on this topic. Not seeing anybody raising their hand. So I will close public comment. And actually, no, I will not close public comment. I will ask the applicant if they want to take this time to make any other comments. If they do, please come to the podium. If not, staying seated, we'll say that you don't need to clarify anything. So now I'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission. Staff, do you have anything you would like to clarify from testimony you heard?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. Commission? Commissioner Curriasi?
Thank you. Actually, would it be okay to ask an additional question at this time to the applicant?
Yeah, if you need a clarifying question, you could bring the applicant. We've done that before. Bring the applicant to the podium and ask a question.
Okay. Yeah, I think, has Caltrans, I guess I'm curious why Caltrans chose an 8-foot wide path through this. I believe there's plenty of space for the standard 12-foot design.
I'm sorry. I don't have a picture to show you, unfortunately, but it's a slab deck bridge with around 50 piers underneath it, and those piers are approximately 16 feet apart, and we elevated the embankment of the bike path slightly because there is ponding water in the winter. It's not incredibly high, but it's a couple feet high, so the embankment's raised about 3 feet off the ground. And even with a 2-to-1 taper at 3 feet, all we could fit was an 8-foot wide bike path up on top.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I guess one other question, and it also goes to public comment. Has Caltrans considered signage, posting signage to better direct?
Yes, we have considered it. We would need to get a TCE with the county to put it on non-Caltrans facilities, but the project has budget to accommodate them if it's desired. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? So just so I fully understand, because I've never been on a bike path there or walked through there, people can already go through there if they want to?
They can. As one individual brought up, we did rock underneath the bridge. So you have to step on stones that are about 3 feet in diameter. But yes, one can walk if they step from stone to stone
So
currently.
there could already be homeless people there, but you're going to remove the rock?
Only in the footprint of the bike path.
Okay.
Is that everything, Commissioner O'Neill? Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner West?
I guess I'll just discuss the project. I am excited to see additional connectivity for our bike trails in the area as an active transportation user. When you don't see people at a specific place, it's not because there's not a desire, it's because it's not comfortable to be there. So I avoid it at least. But when you make things more accessible and safer to use, then you're encouraging appropriate use of an area, and more folks in the area discourages inappropriate use. So I think that connectivity of this bike trail and welcoming folks into it is, I'm hopeful that it would improve some of the issues that we're hearing about. That being said, I am supportive of exploring lighting in the tunnel. I can see why that would be a concern.
Commissioner O'Neill?
I would like, as mitigation for this project, for Caltrans to look at some of the community concerns that have been brought up today, like the fencing, and incorporate them into this project. And you know, I think we heard some valid complaints, and I think that this is an opportunity to address some of those. I do also encourage any safe passage of bikes and pedestrians, but I think if there's already evidence of failing fences and what have you in good faith for mitigation, I think that that should be addressed with this project.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Curriasi?
I guess to your point, Commissioner O'Neill, can you clarify more specifically the mitigation measures you're requesting?
Well, I'm assuming that Caltrans can figure that out with the community if they interview the community or if they've met with them. But tonight they brought up failing fences, the lighting, signage, all of those items that would make it a safer and more maintained passageway. There was safety concerns that were, I'm not an engineer that can figure out all the things that need to be done. I think that Caltrans is fully capable of meeting with the community members and coming up with what those items should be.
So I'm going to jump in, and since every commissioner has spoke except for Scavdall, I'm going to jump in and say a couple of things. So for me, I think having connectivity is a great idea. It's good for the community. Although, if this were a different project, and we heard testimony that currently there's no maintenance vehicles to maintain something we're going to approve, we probably wouldn't approve the project. That's just something just want to throw out there, and just want to make sure that, yes, it's a public resource, it's a public right-of-way, but if this was a private project, that would probably be a red flag for approving it. Safety concerns, to make sure, you know, we heard testimony that fences get cut, gates get opened, so I don't know if there is a higher grade steel fencing that could be put along this area to avoid people cutting it. It will add cost, but it also provide protection possibly for the landowners and also the cattle from getting out. Illumination is a challenge. I think that's a serious safety issue. Someone could be hiding up behind a 3-foot, I heard testimony that's 3-foot high rock. Someone could be crouched down, hidden behind a rock. Someone late after, you know, imagine a college student or something, school during the day, work at night, riding the bike home back to McKinleyville. Something bad happens. I would hate for that to happen. So some sort of illumination. And then I'm hearing a lot of drainage and water issues, but I haven't heard any, finding a hard time finding the right wording, but usually when there's water issues or those kind of things with other projects, there's a lot more discussion about mitigations. You know, I hear people in that area talk about sea level rise and can you build a project if it'll be under sea? So just throwing that out there, not saying that that's a sticking point for me. I just want to acknowledge that when it's a public project that's kind of not being addressed versus a private project that it's being, overall, do I think this would be a great thing? It probably is going to save lives, sounds like, and it also might be able to provide people an affordable way to get to work. That being said, I would like to see some of those type of mitigations added to the conditions of approval if it is within our purview. And also maintenance, if that is something, I don't know where, and maybe that would be something we would just ask staff to put in some sort of condition of approval to address the maintenance issue. And that's all I have. Commissioner Curriasi.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also very supportive of this project. I think on the maintenance side, I'm definitely supportive of adding a condition around maintenance, but I think I want to push back a little bit in terms of being treating a bike path similarly as we would a road, in the sense that I don't necessarily completely agree with that an absence of a presence of a machine to clean a road is necessarily something we would not approve a road, but we would simply add a condition to maintain that road. And then also, I think I'm a little bit hesitant on the fences part. I think, again, I don't know if we would necessarily condition fences to go along a new road. I think if there is clear evidence that a fence is needed to ensure protection of the neighboring property, that makes a lot of sense to me. But I'm a little hesitant on putting a condition for extensive fencing.
That was not my intention. It was to maintain the existing fences.
So for me, maintain the existing fences, but as part of this project, I'm not saying new fences, but mitigation measure or taking of agricultural lands. So to be able to do that, we have to say that it's not going to be adversely affecting the neighboring parcels, which are agricultural parcels. I heard testimony that there's cattle on those parcels. So for me, fencing is a very important resource to protect those agricultural lands. So that's kind of where my basis is coming from. Go ahead.
One more comment. Thank you for that clarity. That I'm in support of that. I would also recommend, very much in support of lighting. I think lighting would be very, it would help significantly with the use of that area and to make that, increase that safety. And I would recommend that lighting is dark sky compliant. And then also I guess maybe it's more of a question, would it be possible to consider a call box? Kind of similarly to where we place a call box on highways. Is that an option to place a call box to improve safety? I don't know if...
I think it'd be something that you'd be trying to condition in, correct?
If it's reasonable.
Staff.
Conditioning it in, but, we get so spoiled with our cellular phones that we forget that a call box normally has telco connectivity. And if they don't have that, it's probably going to be difficult to put a call box in.
Oh.
You mean the actual, telecom connection at the spot. You mean the expense of running.
Right.
Okay.
Makes sense.
And I think I saw some head shaking in the crowd.
Any other commissioners?
You can't make the project so expensive that they'll walk away from it. So,
absolutely.
But they could do some solar lighting.
Commissioner Scavdall?
Yeah, just can kind of clarify. I too am supportive of the connectivity. I have some concerns about creating an attractive nuisance as well. The rocks were put under this crossing for a reason, and now we're going to create a nice flat 8-foot wide space through there that that can still be used for camping. I think it has to be lit. I think it has to be lit at night and possibly even during the daytime. It's dark in there, and there's a contrast change when you're riding your bike and you're out in the daylight and you go under one of these overcrossings. And I have a personal experience where somebody had put a big rock in the bike path under a crossing just like this, which is why I'm not biking anymore, because I had a bad accident. So I think lighting is extremely important. It is a safety issue for bikers as well as pedestrians, and it's a long ways across there. So that's an issue for me. It sounds like it will be elevated, so if there is water under there, hopefully the bike path most of the time will be out of the water, but if it isn't, it needs to be somehow posted, or people need to be warned that there's potentially water in there. That's another issue. If you were, again, you're riding your bike 30 miles an hour along a pathway, and you go under a structure that has water, that's another concern that I would have. So hopefully it's elevated enough that that's not an issue, but it has to be lit. I agree that it has to be fenced and has to be maintained.
Okay. So I just want to touch in with the commission. What I hear is there's consensus, if not majority, that illumination would be something. It would be, I've heard that, I think it's a majority, maybe even a consensus, that the fencing, existing fencing needs to protect be maintained. And then I'm still unsure about the maintenance condition. I don't have like where I want to say like, hey, you have to go down there every week and clean it up, but like there will be, maybe it's provide a report to staff annually that, they got a complaint and they fulfilled that maintenance issue. Most things are complaint driven in this county. I'm trying to not give too much work for staff, but also make sure if someone's traveling down the roadway and there's a hazard, they can call it in and Caltrans would be responsive to that hazard.
If I could, thank you, Chair. I would not want to have Caltrans giving us a report every year.
Okay.
Basically, I would rather have a clear performance standard that the vegetation, the lighting, the fencing, whatever it is, be maintained in an adequate, clear, and orderly condition. And that if this is not done, this is a violation of the permit and would be declared a public nuisance. And what that basically does is it puts it into the potential for a code enforcement action. Not that we want to fine another agency, but that would be the recourse. That way, if there are complaints, we can respond to the permit, enforce the condition, rather than we're presuming that Caltrans is going to do their job. If they don't, then there's another recourse.
I like that way better. So is there a way you can add that language in, kind of like show of hands?
One of the things too is I don't know what the protocol is for Caltrans during times that it could flood, that they would maybe barricade it or whatever they normally do for passageways, streets or whatever, so that people don't go through there. That seems to be a concern. They put up cones or they put up barricades to let people know that it's not safe.
We could definitely put that in as a condition, although I will say...
That's not going to happen very often, but, when there's major flooding going on, some people aren't that, they don't stop themselves.
It's going to, if I could say this, maybe this would help. It's going to flood outside of
before
that tunnel
it gets there.
before it floods the tunnel.
Okay.
So there's going to be water everywhere else, and people are going to have to go through water to get to the tunnel.
Yeah, well, they do that. Okay, thank you.
Mr. West.
I just wanted to echo Commissioner Scavdall's discussion about lighting during the day in addition to lighting at night, I was in support of adding that to the condition of approval.
Okay. So it sounds like we kind of have a consensus, and staff has kind of mentioned some performance standards or conditions of approval. So possibly maybe we get a motion, and
I would just encourage you to add into your motion to embellish the evidence within the resolution of the specific finding related to protecting public health and safety, with the need to have lighting within the undercrossing, and to maintain fencing, vegetation, and other things to maintain a safe condition for bicyclists on this path.
okay.
And pedestrians, and frankly, with respect to the fencing and the neighbors.
Yes. So can I get a motion that covers that, please? And you could say with the language that the director stated into the record, because it is taped and videoed. And
I'll make a motion to approve the Caltrans Boyd Draw Bike Path coastal development permit and conditional use permit as conditioned by our discussion and Director Ford's, using Director Ford's words.
that also include the added finding for public health and safety.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Voice vote.
Quick discussion.
Quick discussion.
I would just encourage the county to also listen to the feedback regarding Winden Road, the safety of travel on Winden Road, as well as Hendon, and work towards improving that to at least a class 2. And I agree with that public comment. People do drive fast at night on those roads, and so I'd encourage the county to pursue that.
Okay. Voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose? Any abstain? Motion carries. So now we will move to, I think it's number 16. I'm looking for a motion to continue to a date uncertain, if my notes are correct.
I so move to approve moving MIB2 LLC conditional use permit to a date uncertain.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, voice vote. Technically, do I need to open public comment opportunity for the continuance?
Yes.
Okay, so before I do the vote. Do we want to bring Lorna back in? Oh, very good.
Yep.
Sorry. Why I'm waiting to bring Commissioner McFarland back in, because I so rudely forgot to invite her back in. I will open public comment for just the continuance of this project. If anyone wants to speak on the continuance of this project, please walk to the podium. Seeing no one walk to the podium in person, I'll go to Zoom. If you want to speak about the continuance, please raise your hand on Zoom. Okay. So my apologies for not bringing you right back in. We're on item 16, and we're about to take a voice vote to continue the project to a date uncertain. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone oppose? Anyone abstain? Motion carries. So now, item number 17, we are looking for a motion to continue that to November 7th.
I motion to continue item number 17, Marcus Land Co. Incorporate, to November 7th, 2024.
I'll second.
Okay, and before I take the vote, same thing, open public comment on that continuance. Anyone in person want to speak on this? Seeing no one, go to the podium. Anyone on Zoom? Seeing no one raise their hand there, I'm going to bring it close public comment and call for a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. So next, I think we should be a report from planner. Yes, report from planner.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the, something that I know the commission's aware of, probably been seeing in the news, maybe at the board, which is the Regional Climate Action Plan. And so that has reached a point where each of the different cities, all the cities in the county and the county, are currently in the process of accepting the draft as the project description for preparation of the EIR. I think most of the cities at this point have looked at it, have voted to do that with some minor changes. They're all fairly minor. Sometimes it's just a request for clarification. So we're going to go ahead and make all those changes and then take that back to the Board of Supervisors on October 22nd for a final vote. And that'll then be the project description for the EIR. And the EIR process will have a draft, a public review draft in the spring of 2025. Going to be doing everything we can to push that date up as far as we possibly can, turn things around quickly. We expect to see that begin public hearings then late spring, summer of 25. So that's really when the commission will start to be reviewing that. If you have comments on the draft, I think I sent you all a copy of the draft. If you have comments on that, feel free to give any comments that you might have. We're appreciating input right now. Some of the questions are really helpful. So that's just, I just want to give a little bit of an update on that. I don't think I have anything else to add. I think you're aware the Board of Supervisors approved the tiny home village. And we actually had somebody come into the counter wanting to do tiny homes fairly close to St. Joseph Hospital for traveling medical personnel. What they described in concept we thought was a tremendous idea, and really happy to see people interested in implementing that. The commercial residential ordinance is going forward to the board on October 1st. That's all I've got tonight.
Any questions?
Do you know how big a square footage they were going to be, the ones by the St. Joe's?
They didn't really have a design yet, but they were talking about, it's basically a residential lot. It's a big residential lot, but they were talking about 5 units on it.
Okay.
I was traveling, and just add to that, I was traveling recently, and I was up in Gold Beach, Oregon, and there was down on the waterfront, actually, there was a really nice tiny homes village. So I pulled in there and walked around a little bit. I would say they were about 600 square feet. I talked to some of the occupants. They loved them. And again, it was nurses and public safety officers, I think, predominantly were renting them. There were 10 or 12 units. It's a nice facility. No asphalt, paved or gravel parking. Really simple, but nice layout. So it's interesting.
Commissioner West.
Do you have any long-range policies that you anticipate coming before us in the near future?
Yeah. Thanks. The long-range planning staff right now is working on the CAP, the Climate Action Plan. And so, and then the rest of the staff is working hard to get an update to the Humboldt Bay Area Plan. So once we get to a place where there's a little bit of dead time on those, the kind of the priorities are to look at a lighting ordinance and then also to look at a noise ordinance. So hopefully end of the year, early 25, we'll be coming forward with those. We also need to make some changes to some of the code enforcement provisions. So whether that's in the zoning ordinance or another part, I'm not sure whether that comes to the commission or not, but that's something that we need to update and address. Some of that's a blight ordinance, so that or maintenance, property maintenance, because a lot of what we get are complaints about the condition of a piece of property. I take it you know. So those are the big things. We want to get to the zoning of, the rezoning to implement the general plan. And then we're also currently in the process of the EIR for the McKinleyville Town Center. We expect to have the administrative draft on that on October 21st. So we will be turning that around as fast as we can, and we may end up doing something that I hate to do, which is to circulate a draft EIR for public review near the holidays. So we may push that back a little bit so we don't do that. I shouldn't say this, but I've heard it too many times. The comment always is, you've done this deliberately so that we don't have the ability to review this environmental document. So this is not ever intentional.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Just to have a general comment, while I was outside, was sitting out the last item, a community member approached me about one of the items that had been approved on consent, and she didn't realize what pulling from consent meant, so she didn't get a chance to comment. So if there's maybe a way in the future that we could just say, we're taking a vote on, you know, if anyone wants to pull something from consent and maybe define that, so people in the audience know. She just had some clarifying questions. Cliff, you might be getting an email, but that's it.
I try to express and explain, and without having like a little thing on the board that shows exactly what our procedures are. Every board or governing body you go to has a different way of acting upon it, and I try really hard, but
You know, I was thinking tonight, if I can, just offer this, and we can write a script for you if this would help. But to say each of the items on the consent calendar are public hearings. If you want to talk about it, you need to pull it.
that might help. Because it fluctuates. There's times where 20 items and nothing gets pulled, and there's times where there's 5 items and every single one of them gets pulled.
Right.
And there's no consensus of how that process goes. So that would make sense. These are all public hearings, so if you have anything to speak on them, please ask to pull them when I go through them.
Yep.
I like that. Commissioner Curriasi?
I just have one other comment, if that's appropriate. I was watching the Eureka City Council on Tuesday, and they had a really interesting presentation on the sort of historic inequities around land use and zoning policies and practices, and it was a really well done and educational presentation that the City Council had asked for, and I thought I got a lot out of it, and I thought I would pass it along as something that commissioners or others may want to watch.
Commissioner West?
And I believe it's going to be a series of educational pieces on planning, so look out for more.
So then, I have one quick clarifying thing for staff, director. I feel I know the answer to this, but I just want to make sure it's on record. In any emails, correspondence we get, we are not required to respond to anyone. Is that correct or incorrect?
You're not required to respond.
Okay.
I would say, though, that makes me uncomfortable saying that, while that's true, is that we are a public service, at least the staff is, public service organization. And so it may be that if, just to say, if you have questions, direct them to staff. I mean, if you were inclined to respond, just to refer them to us.
I always just tell them, I also encourage them to come to the meeting or to make their comments to everyone else, that I need to stay impartial. So when they want to go have coffee or whatever, I decline, because I tell them I want to have an open mind, but I encourage them to come or to call in.
Yeah, it's really your comfort level.
I do, but I'm just trying to, there's sometimes people email you about stuff and just because you'll read it, you'll take it into, if it's about a public hearing, you're definitely gonna read it, but you don't have to respond.
Right.
Is what I was trying to.
That is correct.
Invitations to do things you don't have to respond to.
Particularly, don't say I agree with you.
And don't hit reply all.
I generally don't respond if they're copied to all commissioners and staff. But if they're just to me, I will sometimes, I will respond to say, thank you for your comment. I've forwarded to, and I copy either the staff person or the director in my response. It's just an acknowledgement that I got it. And I want it, if it needs to go into the record, it needs to get to staff. So I just copy it back to them.
I'd agree with you. Like pertinent information I would forward to staff and I'd respond, but I'm talking more like the 20 different people in an email chain.
I don't respond to those.
Yeah.
I'm just a recipient.
Just wanted to make sure. Do you have anything else, Director?
I do not.
Planning Commission discussion items? None? So we will adjourn at 8:01. Thank you.